All right, TGI Friday. So I missed last week. I did do a video, but there were some problems with it, and I had every intention on redoing it. I just didn't get around to it. So I apologize on that end of it. What's happened since then? Let's do 2 weeks. Well, last week we hosted the House Judiciary Committee at the Lodge. It was a pretty unique event. I'll post a link in a separate YouTube video tomorrow. So if anybody didn't see it, you can find it there. But I want to give some kudos to the, obviously, witnesses that testified. Lieutenant John Garrido, and then Gianni Caldwell, whose brother was murdered a year and a half ago, Fox News contributor, and our own trustee, Carlos Yanez Jr., to talk about crime in Chicago and suggestions and recommendations of what should be done, because it's getting worse, not better. Violent crime may be down, but the feeling of less safe is prevalent throughout this city. There is no denying it. Onward we go. For those of you that were at the Brotherhood of the Fallen last week, it was pretty powerful. Again, Carlos was the guest speaker and gave a pretty emotional thank you and recollection of everything he's been through, and honoring not only Ella but Ariana, and along with Andres. So that was a pretty amazing event. On to this week. So I hope, knock on wood, everything goes correct and smoothly. I should have a special update on Wednesday this week coming up. Marathon being this weekend. Everybody have a safe marathon. It's kind of a unique experience to work. I know it kind of sucks getting forced sometimes, but seeing the sheer determination, especially of the lead professional runners, is pretty amazing. And then just the average Joe running 26.2 is pretty incredible. So any of our members running in that race, enjoy it. Congratulations and have a good time. Columbus Day is fast approaching, and it is not Indigenous People Day. It is Columbus Day. Hopefully we can get our statues up sooner rather than later. Another issue that's been lingering around for a very long time. Mayor Johnson should take heed and kind of consideration for the immigrants, the Italian-American immigrants, who helped make this city what it is. It is still disrespectful 3 years later that we are still dealing with this nonsense because of a little dictator who is long since gone and forgotten, thank God. But speaking of immigrants, we get it. I get calls, questions, comments, emails, Facebook Messenger, you name it, all the time about these immigrants. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like we're not doing anything. You have to understand, our hands are somewhat tied. We have done everything we possibly could to minimize the impact to our police stations and our members. It sadly is more likely to get worse than better over the next 6 months to 9 months before the convention gets here. That's just been the strategy. And I don't know what the plan is to deal with it from the Democratic perspective, locally, statewide, and nationally, but something needs to be done sooner rather than later with that also. I will tell you, last week we had 2 officers that were acquitted by ridiculous charges that Kim Foxx had put out there. And just to show you how ridiculous this was, and this was a prosecution green-lighted by her number 3, Lynn McCarthy, even after both of these officers had a proffered statement to try and give some context to what happened that day. They didn't care. They still said, go ahead and charge him. Put him through hell and literally make him suffer the thought of spending 30 years in prison. Well, thankfully, Judge Flood saw through it. It was his last trial before retirement, so happy trails, Judge. Thank you for giving a fair consideration to our members, and they will be back on the job soon here. But I will tell you that the Assistant State's Attorney, who was tasked, one of the 2 of them, that was tasked with this clunker of a case, and kind of said, here, do something with it, because the people who greenlighted it didn't have the guts to charge it and prosecute it themselves. She literally said during the closing rebuttal, these on-duty Chicago police officers had another choice. They did not have to stop and investigate what was suspicious on 18th Street that day. They could have kept driving and called 911. Just think about that ridiculous statement. 2 on-duty officers could have kept driving and called 911. That is what we are dealing with at Cook County in the state's attorney's office, and it needs to change. I will keep saying it from now until next November when this election is held, but we have an opportunity not only, going forward with a new superintendent here and hopefully a new direction, we can also have an opportunity when it comes to the courts and prosecutions and all the hard work that our members do to be not for wasted, which quite often it is, with ridiculous decisions of not charging, and then literally looking to get our members' badges up on her wall, because that's all she cares about at this point, is some goofy form of social justice where when policemen are charged and convicted, that's a feather in her cap, not putting murderers, rapists, carjackers, and everybody else in prison. The 16-year-old who got in a gun battle with those two officers has still not been charged, even though he is on video, clear as day, in the middle of the morning, firing with both hands pointing at the officers' directions, exchanging gunfire. One of his bullets had to be the bullet that struck a citizen in the calf on the other side of where the officers were at. So that's an aggravated battery also, not to mention 2 counts of attempted murder of a police officer, yet to be charged. We're still waiting. Don't hold your breath. In court today, there was a hearing to quash confessions by Amante Morgan, who shot and killed Ella and Carlos. Thankfully, the judge saw through that nonsense motion also by the public defender to try and squash and throw out those confessions. Not once, not twice, but 3 times shortly after the incident when he was in the hospital. So those confessions will stand, they will be admissible, and onward we go. The judge tentatively set the trial date for that case sometime around late February. I think it was the 22nd. So we'll give you updates as that goes forward. I had a lot more I could say, but let's go back to the migrants real quick lastly. So we left court after the acquittal last week, and I got notified by a member, and again, this is where your calls, comments, and questions are useful, that something was going on at the new academy, that they were going to shut down a portion of it to bring migrants there. There was a bunch of buses on the way, and the mayor was going to be there to greet them. Well, I didn't really believe it, but it was too unbelievable to not at least check out. So we went straight there from court. And lo and behold, it was a 100% accurate rumor. Everybody in the building knew it was coming. They were anticipating it. They were told about it early in the day. And I could tell you there were decisions changed pretty quickly once we showed up on scene, because it would have been a Facebook Live video just to really highlight the ridiculousness of the plan of putting migrants in the cafeteria of our new academy. Literally, I think 6 or 7 buses they were expected to start with there, where ammunition and other stuff is stored. It is beyond ridiculous what some of the ideas that are being put forth from Fit Forest City Hall. Something needs to change with those migrants. We're on, as much as we can, we're on the case of communicable diseases, whether it's tuberculosis, scabies, whatever it is. I've been in constant contact with the mayor's chief of staff, Rich Guidis. He's been very cooperative in trying to share information and has assured me that when we had concerns, he would investigate it and get back to us with the information he got from the Chicago Department of Health, for what that's worth, and how much we may believe in what they're telling us. Sometimes, unfortunately, Dr. Arwadi kind of spoiled any real trust in the Chicago Department of Health with the COVID nonsense of 2020 and 2021. With that being said, I will see you all on Wednesday, hopefully with a really unique